Hi, this is Zach here with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Monday the 9th of September. Starting off with the FTSE 100, which is back near its 50-day moving average, 82.30. We would need to see an end-of-day close above that to get us back to the recent highs towards 8400. Otherwise, if we fail, which I suppose with the RSI still under the neutral 50 level at 45, still a chance of a test of the floor of that rising trend channel from this time last year around the 80.30 level. But ideally, we get away with that just in terms of the latest moves being a bear trap, but from below the still rising 50-day moving average, but we still need that end-of-day close above that particular feature. The DAX is next, and here it's been quite a ride, but we bounced off the 50-day line here as well, 18,300, looking for at least a return back to 18,600 on the top of that falling red trend channel in place since the end of April. On the downside, always the risk of a test of the 200-day moving average area in the floor of that channel, 17,800, but ideally we get away with that, or get away from that area. RSI just below 50, so still the risk of a failure at that 50-day moving average. On to the Dow, and here picture was on Friday that we were approaching that 50-day line. Presumably today there'll be a test of that line, and then ideally we bounce, a bit like the DAX has, but still the door open for a move down to the floor of that rising trend channel from last year, 39,300 as a worst case scenario, especially given the way that the RSI has now fallen back below the neutral 50 level. It's 46. On the upside, initial area is 40,800, which is that July resistance line, which we've traded either side of. The situation of Bitcoin also worth looking at the moment, trying to get back towards the 60,000 area, I suppose, but having failed over a series of days at that old October support line, which is now resistance, 59,500. Still the chance of a final dip down to the February support line projection, 51,300. RSI just under 40, so still could be a day or two of consolidation at the lower levels. Moving on to gold, and here it's been a case of the market being range bound largely at and above the old initial August resistance. That was 25.20. Above that, obviously we're looking for the best levels ever, the record highs towards 25.70, and hoping still that we could get up to 26.50 by the end of this month. Downside hopefully limited to 24.64, which is the 50-day line and the floor of that rising trend channel from back in December. It is positive that even after the latest consolidation, the RSI is still above neutral 50 at 53. Moving on to the stocks, and lots of RNSs today, overloaded with them actually, one could say, but we've had good developments here at Andrada. Unfilled gap to the upside off the low, and through the 50-day moving average, 3.5 pence. Initial target here was around 4.1 pence, but really now looking for the 200-day line at 4.4 pence. We haven't been back above that 200-day moving average since November, so that would make a good target for the end of this month, and especially if we can stay above the 50-day line there at 3.5 pence. But gaps off the low tends to be serious bullish triggers. Moving on to Cizzle, which had a decent announcement today. More news regarding American progress. We've got a broadening triangle there from basically this time last year. Gap off the low again, and an end-of-day close above the 50-day moving average at 1.8 pence. Could be the sign that we can at least retest 2.3, 2.4 pence by the end of this month. Ideally, there's no end-of-day close back below the floor of the gap there, 1.6 pence. Moving along to electric guitar, which has had decent news today as well. Collaboration or partnership with Juice, and here you can see that we've got, as we suspected, a rising trend channel base, top of the channel there at 1.1 pence. Looking for that as soon as the end of this month, while we remain above the floor of the channel from July, and the 50-day moving average at 0.7 pence on an end-of-day close basis. Next up, a stock which I wasn't expecting to chart again ever, but it's back. And here we have Eurasia, the resistance line projection there from November, 3.25 pence. We've obviously tested that as resistance. Ideally now we want to stay above the suspension price, around 2.3 pence on an end of day close basis, and certainly want to stay above the 200-day moving average is a stop loss of 1.9 pence, but end of day close above the 3.3 pence level could be the sign that we can head to 4 pence plus, maybe over the next month or so, but at least we're back in business. Stock which might be back in business, although I see it wants to raise just around $500 million, which is obviously a drop in the ocean these days. Here we've got Greatland, which is edged up, but recent resistance around the 7.1 pence level. We need to break that to give us the chance of retesting August resistance at 7.5 pence, but looking relatively stable, let's say, if nothing else. Best case, obviously, if everything goes right, would be a move to the top of that triangle there from April, 9.5 pence, but that feels as though it's a long way away. All the while we want to stay above 6.5 pence end of day close basis. Next up is Katoro, and here decent uranium news, and that's caused a gap off the floor of the rising trend channel there from this time last year. Top of the channel there at 0.17, and we're looking for that by the end of next month while we remain above 0.09, which is the price channel floor, and obviously above that gap as well, the gap floor. Onto mobile streams, where there are, well, in fact, one of the best performers of the recent past, and shares rocketing over the last few weeks. The key here is that the company doesn't need to raise any money, and if that's the case, then we're looking for an end-of-day close above our third target there, 0.12. That could lead the shares up to as high as 0.19 by the end of next month. Ideally, we stay on the right side of 0.1, which was the old November resistance on the way down, but looking very good indeed on mobile streams at the moment, and hoping that, well, as you can see, there haven't been any red candles there since the end of July. Very, very impressive. You hardly ever see that on any stock or any market. Mercantile is next, and here the picture is that we're trying to break that resistance line there from October, the level in question around 2.15 pence. End of day close above that, we can be looking at the top of the triangle there from back in October, 3.4 pence by the end of next month, i.e. by the end of October. Ideally, we stay above the 50-day line there at 1.75 pence while we're trying to turn ourselves around. Oncimmune is next, and one of the better biotechs, mini biotechs, I suppose. Here, the market cap 14 million, and shares recovered very well with the bear trap island reversal, multiple gaps down and multiple gaps up. The break of the 200-day line very encouraging at 20 pence, and above that, we're looking for as high as 31 pence by the end of next month. So hopefully, the recovery continues there. On to one of the best calls here in the recent past, which is Sealand. Here we had the initial target there around 0.15, 0.16, second target, or the second resistance there around 0.33. The ideal scenario is that we can get up to as high as 0.46 over the near term, but obviously we come up a long way in a very short time. There is some support from the old resistance on the way down, 0.25, so maybe if you're in that particular situation, that is where you're hoping any retracement would settle. Other point to note is the way that the 50 and 200-day lines are both rising at the moment, so we're still heading into a golden cross, and that is obviously, as it has been in this case, normally the strongest part of the cycle. Remember, the shares were identified here on the 2nd of September. Don't think anybody else can claim that kind of victory over on a regular basis. On to Sunda, which has had a decent update as well. Here we've got this rising trend channel base, very long dated one, as we've got to be very patient, but looking for the shares to, I suppose, break recent resistance around 0.076. If you're fussy, maybe 0.08, and then head up to 0.12, perhaps by the end of next month. All the while we want to stay above the 50-day line there at 0.07, which would be nice. I suppose the ultimate stop loss there is the floor of the channel, 0.064. On to the last two. First one, rather more conventional uptrend here, rising trend channel for Transense. That's been in place since March. Top of the channel there, £1.80, and we're looking for that by the end of this month, especially while we remain above the floor of the channel there at £1.51. Rising 50 and 200-day lines as well, giving that stock or that chart a good look. Funding news from Upland, done very well, I think, today. And here we've had the shares gapping up on the funding news, which is rather unusual. Recent support, September support at 1.11 pence, and we're looking for the shares to head up to 1.7 pence perhaps by the end of this month as a best case scenario target. That also ties in with that rather obscure resistance line projection from this time last year, and the ideal scenario is that we can hold above the gap at 1.25 pence, but that may be asking a little too much. That's it for me today. More updates tomorrow.